on the second running, and then all of a sudden, then you start getting checks for $1.30.
But when you're Tim Allen or someone like that who has a home improvement, then he owns. I'm sure he must have owned at least a chunk of that show. So when that shit goes to syndication, you just fucking rake it in. It was worth it for him, I guess, to stop doing stand up for a long time. I shouldn't speak out of turn because I don't know if this is really true. This is just what I had heard. Was that Tim Allen was a very good stand up. You ever watch Tim Allen back in the day?
No, that's what I heard.
He was a very good stand up, and a fun guy to watch. He was fun. But his show was like just a little rowdy, just not dirty, not really, it wasn't like Kinnison or anything like that. But I guess it was too rowdy for the show. And they were saying, look, you're going to be on Home Improvement, you should tone that shit down, and you should stop performing.
Right.
You're out there and you're saying crazy things about drills and hammers, and you're going to get us in trouble. So
this probably wasn't the shit about the drills and hammers. I imagine it was the shit about being
cocaine.
in jail in fucking Michigan or whatever. That's all the stuff. Yeah, that I would want to hear.
Yeah, well, that was a weird thing when you hear about that. You're like, whoa, you can go to jail and then wind up on TV. That's pretty fucking badass.
No, when you get out of jail, you either get into sales or show business.
Yeah.
Those are the only two places they don't give a fuck. I hacked a guy up. All right, well, do like 5. Bring up the next guy.
There was a dude that we knew from Rhode Island that beat a guy to death with a stick. I'm just thinking about this guy right now. Do you know Eddie Galvin?
No.
From Rhode Island? Was he gone by the time you were coming around?
Eddie Galvin?
Yeah.
I would remember the guy if he got beat to death.
No. He didn't get beat to death. He beat a guy to death.
Oh, Heckler?
I'm sure I'm saying his name right. He was a really funny guy, though. He was one of those Brian Holtzman type guys that was just like comics would like get into the back of the room to watch him when he would go on stage and just go, Jesus fucking Christ, did he just say that? He was a crazy dude.
Who did he beat to death?
Oh, some guy. I don't know the story. I don't know what happened. I might not even be right.
Jesus, dude, what did you smoke before this? This is just like fucking so random.
No, I'm just.
I don't even know if that happened. If I just
up.
You just thought of Rhode Island and this whole movie started playing in your head. What's a famous
people beating people to death?
What's a famous movie that was shot in Rhode Island where someone gets beat to death? I bet that's just playing in his head right now. And that's what he's remembering.
Did you ever see Friends of Eddie Coyle? Is that it?
I saw that.
The Mitchum movie, Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
What a fucking great movie.
Yeah, that was a good movie. What's his face from Everybody Loves Raymond is in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Peter Boyle.
Yeah, Peter Boyle. Yeah.
I just saw that in the past year. All of a sudden, like resurfaced.
Peter Boyle was a fucking amazing actor. Holy shit, was that guy good? That's a great movie. Yeah. That is a really good movie.
I like those kinds of movies. That's the kind of shit I still like. If I buy something on DVD, I'm gonna buy like the Dirty Dozen, Magnificent Seven, like that era.
You know what I bought the other day? Le Mans with Steve
McQueen.
McQueen.
Yeah,
God damn,
that used to come out once a year. They would play that on either TV 38 or WLVI Channel 56. I'm just saying this shit because I know you grew up that area, and that's why I watched all those guys, all that Bronson, Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, all of that shit, and it was on a rotation the same time every year that they would play like the 8 o'clock movie.
Steve McQueen, did you ever watch it? You've seen Le Mans?
Yeah.
There was like parts in that movie for like 5-10 minutes where no one said a word.
Yeah.
For like 10 minutes. Like, you watch the movie, they're changing tires, they're setting things up, people go and get a cup of coffee, all this shit is taking place. No one's talking at all. And you're like, wow, this is like a different era. It's a different world.
Yeah, that's when the directors took over.
The world of, like, Stanley Kubrick, the world of 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Do you know before that whole movement happened, that back in the day, like, all the director did, for the most part, was just make sure that you were in frame.
Really?
And that you said everything you said. And then the second you wrapped on the movie, the studio took it and they edited the thing.
Wow.
And it wasn't until, I don't know. I'm really speaking out of turn because I know about as much about this as I do about Star Wars. But like somewhere in the 60s is when the director started taking it over, going like, no, this is my fucking film. I'm going to edit this and we want to do it this way. That was sort of the first wave of that. And when that happened, that's when you had all the...
that's when Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Oh, that was sort of the
later.
That was 10 years after.
Yeah, but that kind of that kind of movie, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, and that was like that during that time. Like, art was ridiculous. The music, you had the tail end of the Beatles going on. Those directors were taking over, and then Richard Pryor was like finding his voice, and like stand up was coming out to the forefront. Like that whole era in art is incredible.
Yeah.
But it's funny, but then they just, you know, that 70s show, they just boil it down to like lava lamps and crap. It's like, dude, there was a little more interesting shit going on back then than that. I mean, I know it's just a sitcom, but I'm just saying, you know, they do, the early 70s is Nixon resigning, and the late 70s is everybody doing coke, listening to disco, and then like, well, that's that decade. Now we're into the 80s.
How about Nixon?
Michael J. Fox picture.
I remember when Nixon was president. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a kid listening to him crying on the radio when he stepped down.
First Kent State and then Watergate. Like, has there ever been a more fucked up, crooked guy shooting at fucking college students?
I thought Johnson was in office then.
No, that was Nixon. That was Nixon.
Well, he wasn't there with the rifles, was he?
He probably was. It's probably his idea.
He probably was.
Son of a bitch. He probably wanted to silence these fucking punk kids. Nixon was a creepy dude, man.
He was. The fact that you're so